Gets through amongst all these changes, staying here with you, keep 'em inside and out of the cold. Many trials and phases on the open road. Keep 'em in mind. Salient view, all dovetail to hear, lying next to you. And if everything just fades away, nothing ever stays the same. If everything just comes and goes, it's important, you know.
I had for this cabinet was I wanted to store some of my previous knitwear projects. Some of them I am planning on frogging, but I thought I would go ahead and show you some of those projects because they were sort of before I guess got into more of the technical aspect of knitting. This is, I believe, the latte sweater pattern. I can go ahead and put the details here, but I never ended up finishing the sleeves, and I believe I stopped with this one because I ran out of yarn. I was using some yarn that my mom had given me, so it was kind of limited supply. I actually liked how this one looked short-sleeved. I think my biggest problem with it is it's rather tight in the arms, and I kind of prefer a little bit of arm room. Still cute though. It's fun to see this project because it was sort of the beginning of the taking on of more complex projects, I guess. Not that this is particularly complex, but this next one, I believe it's the same latte sweater pattern. I took a little bit of creative liberty with this one and was doing some color work, so I had some black on the cuff and on the neckline. This one I didn't continue, I believe, because I wasn't really huge on the black and green together, but I don't know, trying it on I actually kind of like it. The other issue is that the band kind of folds up, but that being said, I have not blocked it. This one's probably the most tragic of them all. This is a fisherman rib cardigan that I put just an endless amount of hours into. I love the color of this. I love the stitch so much. But the problem with this one, and the problem with actually the way that I am a knitter in general, I don't really look into what the pattern entails. I didn't realize that this was a piece together pattern. And I also didn't check the gauge, which is something I check gauge now. But I just made for the thickest fabric, and the sew together aspects of this, it just didn't, as you can see, I never finished the button band, but it just doesn't quite sit correctly. It's very dense, it's kind of difficult to move around in. I do sometimes wear this around the house just to wear it, but yeah, I was pretty sad when I sewed this together and it just didn't quite sit right. At some point I would like to do another fisherman rib project because I do love this stitch. It is really stunning, but yeah. And then this one is actually, as you can see, the needles are still on it. It's very fresh. This is another example of me not really looking into a project before I start it. This was my first time knitting with mohair, and that's really all I can say about it, to be honest. Well, a lot of things went wrong with this one. I wasn't really paying attention while I was working on it. You were supposed to only knit the front section down to about here, and then you were going to connect it in the back and then knit down together. I knit the front section all the way down and then had to sew the sides together once I realized my mistake, because as we know with mohair, it's essentially impossible to tear back. I was thinking about starting this one over though and doing the freezer technique where you put your mohair project in the freezer and then it makes it easier to untangle. I just am not totally sold on the wearability of this. I'm not really a big fan of how it looks with this white underneath. I'm not sure what color I would wear it with. It's supposed to have sleeves, but I'm just feeling pretty unmotivated to work on it, to be honest, because I'm just not super attached to it. And I also feel like I made a lot of mistakes while knitting on this that I just wouldn't feel super confident about wearing this out. All right, this one I did not knit. My mom actually knit this for me for my 23rd birthday, and I love this cardigan. It's so soft and so cozy, but the biggest bummer about it is that it just does not want to stay on my shoulders. It just slips all the time. So I'm contemplating frogging this and turning it into something else. It's one of those cardigans where it's hard to figure out what weather to wear it in, because obviously you can't put a jacket on over top of this, and it's quite warm, as you can see it's pretty woolly. So yeah, it's very difficult to style. As much as I absolutely love how it looks, it's just maybe not the most practical for my wardrobe, but it is sad because my mom made this for me, but she gave me permission to frog it, so. Alright, so I just wanted to finish up this video by just sharing a couple of projects I'm working on, some things I've recently completed, some yarns I've really been loving, and then also some books that I've really been enjoying recently. The first project I'd like to talk about is the June top by Petite Knit. I knit this up in a Irish yarn that's a blend of silk, cotton, wool, and linen. So it has a really incredible texture. It's very rugged feeling, but still very soft. And I think if I had a bit of extra yarn, I maybe would have added an I-cord on the bottom of this because it does roll up a little bit. I think the gauge was maybe a little bit off before I started this project, but otherwise this is an incredibly wearable piece. It's slightly toasty currently, but I think in the months to come, particularly in September when the weather's kind of in that transitional period, this will be a really nice piece to wear. I'm going to the beach in November and I can't stop thinking about wearing this because to me this is a very coastal piece. The colors in it are very coastal and yeah, I'm really excited about this. I recently knit the same piece in this linen yarn and I have yet to, as you can see, I have yet to weave in any of the ends and the straps are still on paper clips. So I just need to Kitchener stitch those up and then block it, and then this will be all ready to go. I was considering frogging this when I first made it because I'm really used to working with the texture of wool, and sometimes I can kind of rapidly judge things that I make that aren't made with wool because it doesn't have the same liveliness to it, I guess. There's kind of a liveliness to wool and the texture of wool that other fibers don't have. But the more I look at this, the more I really enjoy it, and I like the almost denim quality of this yarn, and I think this will go with a lot of things. So I'm really excited to finish this project up and start wearing it. I wanted to also quickly mention, while we were on the subject of Petite Knit and this brand of yarn, I finished this project in January. This is a Petite Knit vest, and I'll leave all the details of the pattern and the yarn here, but this easily has to be one of my favorite yarns I've ever worked with, as well as one of my favorite patterns. I really enjoyed the construction of this piece. The only modification that I made was I did twisted ribbing instead of just a standard rib stitch on the bottom and the armholes and the collar, but this color is just simply stunning. It goes with everything. I wore it so much this winter and I'm really excited for the weather to start cooling down so I can wear it again. Yeah, just absolutely love this piece, so I just had to mention it. I've seen lots of people talking about this next pattern on Instagram and on Ravelry. This is the patchwork cardigan, or maybe it's called the heirloom cardigan. I have only made a handful of the squares. I shared these earlier in this video, but I've really enjoyed the process of knitting these. The only thing that I've come across, and this is a new issue for me because every time I've done color work in the past, I've always bought the same brand of yarn. I've, same brand, same line, obviously same weight. So there's complete uniformity in the color work, but this is the first time I've attempted a scrap buster project because I wanted to have a lot of different tones. They were all kind of in the same color family, but just so I had a lot of variation throughout the cardigan. And I discovered that not all DK weights are the same amongst different brands. And I'm sure lots of factors go into this. The kind of processing the wool goes through, the type of fiber it is, the kind of wool that they're using. It's just been really interesting. I just kind of assumed, oh, it's all DK weight, it'll all be the same, but definitely not. Some of these look like it's worsted weight knit within DK weight, so there's a little bit of tension in the pattern there, but I think once it's all blocked and sewn together, it should be fine. But it's just kind of a funny thing that I was not expecting that I ran into. But really excited about the color palette that I'm working with. This piece might take me quite a while, but I do really love knitting each of these little squares. I find it to be very therapeutic, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing the final product. This next project I mentioned earlier in the video as well. This I'm absolutely the most enamored with. I haven't been enamored with a project like this in quite some time. This is the Nomad jacket by Wool & Beyond. So up here, this is the back yoke. This is a double knit stitch up here, and then we have an I-cord, and the rest is a honeycomb brioche stitch. If you're considering taking this project on, something that I did before starting was I really looked at the different projects people had tagged on Instagram and on Ravelry, and was trying to be very particular about the yarn that I ended up choosing for this project. I swatched quite a few different yarns. Something that I realized when I was swatching for Gauge with different yarns that I already had, as well as sort of looking at what other people were using on Instagram and Ravelry, to really achieve the full effect of the dimensionality of the honeycomb brioche stitch, I think it really helps to have an undyed natural wool to work with. If you're comfortable knitting with wool, if that's a preference of yours, I just think that the natural variation in tone really brings out the dimensionality in this stitch. I found that when I swatched with dyed fibers, it just fell a little bit flat, unless there was some sort of natural dimensionality within that dyed yarn. This one, when I swatched it, I just knew that this is the one I wanted to go with. I'll show the comparisons between the different swatches on the screen here. Hopefully it makes sense, but I just think it really makes the world of a difference to have something with a little bit of dimensionality to it, just to really give the stitch everything that it deserves. This is a sport weight yarn from Bartlett Yarns, which is made in Harmony, Maine. Their backstory is really interesting. If you look on their website, it's really cool. Their historical background in the United States as a wool manufacturer, really incredible. But this is the sport weight yarn in medium sheep gray. It's definitely more of an oatmeal-y color than a proper gray tone, but it's truly one of the most beautiful yarns I've ever worked with. I would really recommend this yarn for this project. It blooms really beautifully, and it's not too itchy at all, but it still has that really rustic quality to it. This is a yarn that I briefly wanted to talk about that is a new to me yarn. I've never worked with this yarn before. It's the Bichet et Boucher. It's a lamb's wool that's from Scotland, and the color palette that this company has is truly my dream. This color in particular is a colorway that I really would love to get many more skeins of and maybe make a pullover or a cardigan with it. The tonality in it is just incredibly beautiful, and I just love the feel of this yarn. I've been using it for my patchwork cardigan, but like I said, I would love to be able to make something on a larger scale with this specific colorway. Okay, next I just want to share a little bit about some books that I've really been enjoying. This one, I don't even have to finish it to know that I'm going to absolutely love it. This is Hannah Coulter by Wendell Berry. I read Jayber Crow with two of my best friends in 2021. We did a little book club together, and then we went to a little Airbnb to finish the last chapter. I just really love anything by Wendell Berry. I find his writing to just be so effortless. The way that he captures different emotions and dialogue is just so incredibly beautiful. Jayber Crow was just so incredible, but I'm about halfway through Hannah Coulter, and I've really, really been enjoying it. This book is all about grief, and it's so beautifully written and so sensitive to the topic, and I'm about halfway through it. I've really been taking my time reading this one because I just really love it and I don't want it to end, so I'd really recommend this one. This is a memoir by Mae Davidson called Whatever It Takes, and the back reads, "In a remarkable and inspiring tale, fueled by true love and an unshakable belief in the power of hard work regardless of obstacles, Mae Davidson recounts a life that took her and her teenage sweetheart from lobster fishing to sheep breeding to long-haul trucking and more as they labored year after year to save their dream farm from foreclosure and sustain a way of life they so deeply loved. And despite setbacks that brought them to their knees, the couple who clung together through ups and downs for nearly 70 years would eventually find salvation in the woods and on the sea. The imagery in this book of coastal Maine is just to die for. It's so good, and you really, really fall in love with this couple and their story, and I just loved this book. I was so sad when I finished it, and I'll very likely read this again soon. Trick is a stylish drama about ambition, family, and old age that goes beyond the ordinary and predictable. Imagine a duel between two men. One, Daniel Malarico, a successful illustrator who in the twilight of his years feels that his reputation and his artistic prowess are fading. The other, Mario, is Daniel's 4-year-old grandson. Daniel has been living in a cold northern city for years, in virtual solitude, focusing obsessively on his work. When his daughter asks if he would come to Naples for a few days and babysit Mario while she and her husband attend a conference. Shut inside of his childhood home, an apartment in the center of Naples that is filled with the ghosts of Malarico's past, grandfather and grandson match wits as Daniel heads toward a reckoning with his own ambitions and life choices. If it isn't evident already by the books that I've spoken about, I really love books where the plot is a lot more about the complexity of people and interpersonal relationships than, excitement or, big events happening or big conflicts. It's all very subtle. This book is the perfect book for me in that sense. It's just funny and reflective, and the way that he shows the child's perspective is really, really funny. I would really recommend this book. It's really a quick read and just really fun and entertaining and reflective and all the good things. And finally, the last book that I have is actually a cookbook. It's called Grist by Abra Berens, and it's a book all about cooking grains, beans, seeds, and legumes. Photographs inside are so nice, and I love the text. It's very educational. There's a lot about how to make different variations of different recipes, how to pick out the best produce. I'm really excited about making as many things from this as possible. It's made me really, really excited about fall. A lot of these meals feel very autumnal. The only recipe that I've been able to make from it so far is the corn porridge with mushroom, cream sauce, and spinach. This recipe made me want the cold so badly. It is so incredibly cozy. The spinach in it is so fresh, and it was really delicious and super easy to store for leftovers and make different little variations of it throughout the week so you don't get tired of it. Really incredible and very simple. Alright, so that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching today's video. This was my first time pulling together a video like this, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to making more videos in the future. Thanks so much for watching again, and I'll see you next time. Bye.